Okay, back over to Combat Mission Afrika Corps. Now for the first time actually in the region and time period that the game is rated to portray accurately. We've sort of been pushing the boundaries of the engine by, playing in like June, you have lots of Battle of France scenarios that have played, which are well outside what the scope, well outside the scope of what the game is actually designed to accurately portray. But now we're inside the bounds of what the game is designed to accurately portray, and we are. Let's see, we get some background narrative here with the briefing. Which, Italy declared war on the Allies in, tail end of the German invasion of France. And let's see. So we got the Italian push into Egypt in September 1940. Which I don't think I have any scenarios covering that, but I don't think there was a whole lot of fighting during that. They made it about 60 miles inside the border. I think the British were waiting for them a little further back than that, kind of expecting them to make a more determined push. And then started digging in. Anyway, we've got General O'Connor has got about 30,000 men in the Western Desert Force, and this is the beginning of Operation Compass. So, let's see, okay. As originally scoped, we don't know that it's going to expand in order to exploit unexpected success at this point. Operation Compass is a 5-day raid on the Italian positions inside Egypt. We will conduct a dawn raid on the encampment at Nibeiwa, which is garrisoned by Miletti's Raggruppamento. I apologize sincerely to anyone whose ears hurt at my pronunciation of that. Okay, we will exploit the success of the attack if it is feasible. Okay, so take Nibeiwa Fort. And we've been conducting aggressive reconnaissance against the Italians over the past few weeks. The fortifications we are attacking have several minefields. Some have been identified on the southern approaches to the fort. Okay, so I need to be worried about mines here. The Italians have a battalion of Libyan colonial infantry, stiffened with a few regular Italian units. There are at least 3 artillery batteries in the perimeter, plus numerous machine guns. A weak armored battalion is stationed just inside the fort. They are known to be equipped with M1139 tanks, which maybe I should look up the stats on those. My forces: 11th Indian Brigade, B Squadron, 4th Royal Tank Regiment, or 4th Battalion of the Royal Tank Regiment. It's a battalion. Generally, like when you see a British tank unit shown as number of the, or however many Royal Tank Regiment, that's referring to a battalion level formation, but it is complicated. Okay, so I've got a medium tank squadron, 4th Battalion, 7th Regiment, 1 infantry company, 1 3-inch mortar FO, 4th Royal Horse Artillery, 1 25-pounder FO with 6 TRPs, reserves, 1 infantry platoon, 1 medium tank troop. Okay, so we've got... So on map I should have some tanks, some infantry, an FO, 2 FOs, 1 mortar FO, and 1 artillery FO, and 6 TRPs I should think about how I'm going to place, with more infantry and tanks on the way. Okay. Okay, so this bit there is spoilers, not actually part of the briefing. Okay, so... Mission, capture the fort. Enemy... Okay. Mines, infantry, artillery. Yeah, if there's artillery here firing in direct fire and flat trajectories, that could be a threat to my tanks and a few of their own tanks. Terrain and weather: clear, very dry, warm. Terrain is not completely flat. Okay, I guess this is probably a bit of an artificial dip here for the purpose of having safe setup zones from enemy observation, so not a real feature of the terrain, just sort of a gamey keep the setup zone out of view. Okay, so terrain is rolling a little bit lower towards the roads. Basically, we don't have clear lines of fire all the way across the map. Actually, it's remarkably good micro-terrain for a CM1 map. Things are flatter inside the fort. Got lots of small buildings, lots of walls. Some dips in the ground here. Okay, we've got a lot of sandbagged squares there. If I were a betting man, there are likely gun emplacements of some sort there, either machine guns or mortars, or quite possibly those artillery batteries that the briefing warned us about. There's a cemetery. Has a stone wall around it, but it probably isn't a great defensive position. Okay, my setup zone goes clear around the map. There are my TRPs. At a certain point in the planning stage, I need to figure out where I'm going to put my TRPs. Target reference points, for anyone not familiar with the lingo. Okay, so putting it in the terrain analysis in always takes me a minute to remember the acronym, okay, so obstacles, avenues of approach. I can always think of obstacles and avenues of approach together, because I kind of think of an avenue of approach as a place with fewer obstacles to movement, so one can hardly assess them separately. Obstacles and avenues of approach, and then there's observation fields of fire and cover and concealment. And again, I kind of feel like I have to consider those together because, good cover and concealment are areas where at least to or from some portion of the map there are not great you're hidden from observation, concealment, or fields of fire cover. So, avenues of approach. I mean, it's a desert, so pretty much everywhere is an avenue of approach. Except, okay, the walls. The stone walls are an obstacle to vehicle movement. The vehicles I think, should be able to grind over the stone walls, but may degrade the tracks. Which means, yeah, everywhere outside the fort is an avenue of approach up to the perimeter of the fort. Sorry. But I do have just a handful of entrances. Okay, quite a few of entrances, but they are at discrete points. We've got, looks like 3 entrances on, where's our north marker here? There we go. Okay, so 3 entrances on the west side of the fort, 1 on the north, and 3 on the east side of the fort. Once inside the fort, at least as far as vehicle movement is concerned, now all these houses and stone walls will be great positions for infantry to move. You know, for like I can have my infantry move from one stone wall to the next houses or the next stone wall. So that'll actually that provides some cover for my infantry to progress through. For my tanks, however, these are all obstacles. So tanks will be channeled along these roads, between gaps in these stone walls. Like, there's nowhere that they won't be able to get, but it's gonna be more difficult for them to get places. Like, infantry could take pretty much a straight shot to that central flag there if, say, they started over here. A tank would have to drive... Well, I mean, again, maybe these tanks are heavy enough to crush over these stone walls, but at least in CM2 they would suffer some track degradation for that. I don't know. For CM1, I'm, again, less familiar with the engine. Oh, but of course, my own forces. That's one of the T's, troops available. I've got Matilda 2s. This is a pretty dang powerful early war tank. That is... Okay, not a super powerful gun. Let's get the 2-pounder, which actually is one of the better early war tank and anti-tank guns. Yeah, some of the 37mm guns I've seen have... the game rates them at less than 50mm of penetration at 100 meters. This 2-pounder is rated at 82mm penetration at 100 meters, 52 at 500 meters. That's pretty dang good by early war standards. It's, you know, not as good as a 6-pounder, but that ain't bad. But of course, the real selling point of the Matilda 2 is that is absolutely insane armor protection for an early war tank. Like, even the T-34 ain't got nothing on this. Like, this level of armor protection. So, like, these Matildas... The enemy may be able to find some kind of way to take these out, but it ain't gonna be easy. Especially, I mean, what do the Italians have that might actually be able... I mean, I think at most they're hoping for lucky shots on the guns and the tracks. So I think I should focus... No, I don't really have any infantry. I was promised an infantry company, wasn't I? The briefing did say I had an infantry company somewhere. Nope. That series of white spots over there must be them. Now, wherever I attack from, I do want my infantry and tanks to be attacking together. So having the infantry company way on the other side of the map is suboptimal, so I'll want to adjust, you know, troops will have to be moved around before I click go. But right, okay, so yeah, I don't... Yeah, the Italians don't have anything that could easily take out a Matilda 2. Now, any one Matilda charging in alone could get unlucky. Like, they might get a hit on the gun or a hit on the tracks. But I think if I use them en masse, they should be pretty much unstoppable. So I guess the question is, where do I want to attack from? And the first thing that comes to mind to me is, well, the shape of the fort is not entirely symmetrical. Like, we have a long axis and a short axis, and whenever I'm attacking an enemy position with this kind of geometry, I always want to push against the short axis, so I may want to mass my troops over on the north side of the map and push straight down that way. That minimizes a lot of the, complications. I don't have to... My attack is more concentrated. It's not... Like, in order to cover the entire frontage, attacking the wide axis, my attack has to be thinner, or I have to not attack the entire frontage of the position. Whereas if I attack the short axis, I can attack the entire frontage of the position with a more concentrated attack. One complication, of course, is we only have one entrance that's good for tanks on the narrow axis, whereas we have 3 entrances that are good for tanks on either of the wide axes. So that's something to consider. Oh, but of course the other advantage, of course, to attacking the narrow axis is I have all of my force concentrated against what's more likely to just be a portion of the enemy force. Any opportunity to concentrate a majority of my forces against piecemeal portions of the enemy force is always a good opportunity to look out for. Yeah, okay, so are there any serious disadvantages to doing that? Again, we've covered one. Oh, yes, and of course, we do expect there to be mines, and these known entrances are precisely where I would expect there to be mines. And if there's anything that can take out a Matilda 2, it'll be mines. So, yeah, that's definitely something to be mindful of. Okay, but if I attack over this ground here, and we don't have great visibility on the fort for the initial phase of this, and of course that also means that the fort does not... Defenders of the fort don't have great visibility on our attackers until we crest about this point here. Which might be good, so whatever defenses are, say, stationed here, find themselves suddenly under overwhelming attack. That might be good, beneficial. I may be able to filter some of my tanks around through this way, or just let 1 or 2 leading tanks suffer whatever track damage comes with crunching down these stone walls. I may reduce the risk that they blow up on any mines emplaced on the obvious entrances. Yeah, that may be the way to go. Yeah, lead with maybe 1, or maybe just to get my tanks in a little faster, 2, say entering around here and maybe around here. and just those lead 2 will suffer whatever track damage comes from crunching down those stone walls, while the following ones don't suffer any track damage. Concentrate the bulk of my attack down this route. Yeah, I think that's how we're going to do it. Okay, so now I need to... No, I'm not actually going to be able to move more than one at a time. Am I? Oh, but one thing I should do... have you guys rotate while you're still right about here. Well, okay. This might actually be the best viewpoint to be in for making some of these moves. And I will want to spread them out a little bit, just enough that they are covering the entire width of the defense. Which they're actually already pretty close to doing. Yeah, I don't think I'll fiddle with that too much more before starting the attack. Okay, so then we've got our squadron of tanks, and we've got our company of infantry here. Right, so there's the company commander, and we've got platoon HQ with anti-tank rifle, 2-inch mortar. This platoon HQ just has 3 rifle sections, nothing fancy like a mortar or anti-tank rifle. This one's got 3 rifle sections and a mortar and an anti-tank rifle. That one's got 3 rifle sections and a mortar and an anti-tank rifle. Hang on, do these... I believe I have found your mortar and anti-tank rifle. And who have we... Okay, these must be our forward observers. Which... I'm given a pretty generous number of TRPs. How exactly I'll distribute them, I'm not entirely sure just yet. But I guess I'll figure that out when I get to it. Okay, yeah, I am once again going to have to move these guys one at a time. So I think you out there. Interesting, they don't have any submachine guns. Well, the platoon HQ has a Thompson. Okay. I guess we'll just put everyone into a bit of an extended line here. Now, when we attack, I think I do want the tanks to crest first. And actually, I will fiddle with the tanks' positioning just a little bit here, just to nudge them a bit to the right. Okay. Yeah. Definitely some quality of life issues here with setting up these troops. I don't think the anti-tank rifles are going to have much to do in this scenario. Because I definitely have plenty of tanks with very effective anti-tank guns already on them. Well, okay. I mean, my infantry might find themselves in points of the battlefield that don't have tanks conveniently nearby to take out any enemy tanks that they come across. And on those occasions, may be glad to have the anti-tank rifles, which should be perfectly effective against the Italian tanks I'm likely to come up against here. Is the M1139. Hang on. Yes, without closing the game down, I'm gonna Google on my phone M1139 tank. Okay, M1139. What kind of armor protection are we looking at here? Front armor 30 millimeters, side armor 14.5, at least according to Wikipedia. Obviously, the 2-pounder will not have any difficulty with that at any likely range. Again, sort of the edge of practical combat distances for World War II tanks is about 1,000 meters. You know, about half of what you would expect for a Cold War tank. The edge of their sort of effective radius is about 2 kilometers. Okay, and my AT rifles could theoretically punch through the frontal armor, but may struggle with it. Should have no difficulty with the side armor. Yes, but now having... Okay, let's do that. Now that I'm zoomed in again, I'm reminded that all my guys are facing the wrong way, so let's rotate you guys. also need to be rotated. Right then. Okay, so we've got sort of the starting positions of my maneuver troops. Now I need to figure out what's my fire plan. Like the maneuver plan is push straight down the fort along its long axis, you know, attack the narrow axis and push down the long axis. As a general rule, one should create a fire plan that supports the maneuver plan. Just so I don't lose track of them, let's... And, you know, just... It'll be safer for them once the scenario starts if my FOs don't get too far away from the infantry. I'll still keep them a little ways separate so that I can tell at a glance that they're not infantry. Or not among my assault elements, anyway. Okay, so I have... There's the 25-pounders, which come out to about 88 millimeters when you go by bore diameter rather than shell weight. And 120 rounds, I think, is those are... That ammunition count there is, I think, discrete rounds of ammunition in this case, which isn't always the case in CM1. And we got 3-inch mortars, and hey, that is exactly 3 inches, 76.2 millimeters. 180 rounds of that. Now, I do not... Yeah, because I have all these TRPs, there isn't necessarily any reason that I have to create a pre-planned artillery barrage. Like, I can sort of count on being able to use reactive fire with the TRPs, but I still need to decide where are the TRPs going. Now, a good starting point may be I put one TRP on each of these objective flags, because, well, that may be a reasonable guess, a reasonably good guess on where I'm likely to encounter resistance. Of course, I have 6 TRPs to place and only 5 objective flags. And I would like to put a little bit better thought into it. And let's just get this last TRP just so it is in an easier place to work with. Okay. I've kind of ended up putting this one on a crossroads, which may be a decent spot for it. Or so what if I end up wanting to put my most fire on, say, the edge of the fort? If that's where I encounter the most resistance, which does seem... Well, it's definitely... The edge of the fort is where I'd be most likely to encounter resistance if the defenders are stood to, if they're expecting me to attack. If I catch them by surprise, then the interior of the fort may be where I encounter the most resistance. So it all kind of depends on how prepared are they for me. That is labeled as the main gate. good chance of strong defenses there. Possibly. Okay, you know, I think... I think if I make it this far back to these back objective flags, the enemy will probably be pretty close to crumbling by then anyway. So where I need where I need the TRPs are where I'm more likely to encounter strong enemy resistance, which is closer to the edge here. Yeah, it does seem likely that the main gate... Like, they might try to defend the main gate a little bit more strongly. We've also kind of got this bulge here with a few more of these sandbag boxes here that I expect to have heavy weapons. So maybe about there. And yeah, if we think of these sandbags as being pretty likely to have heavy weapons, there's a crossroads right there. That might be a good spot. Okay. Is that my planning done? Possibly. Possibly not. I've got some of these outlined. That's pretty isolated. You know, I bet we'll overrun that pretty quick if there's anything there. Is there anything else? It may be time to get this battle started. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think it's time to kick this thing off. Am I sure this is where I want my FOs hanging out? They will have to crest over this ridge if I want them to actually get any direct spotting on anything that doesn't have a TRP. In fact, the ground is so flat, I don't see them getting any long-range spotting. I don't think they'll be able to see anything. Yeah, you know, flat in the sense of not offering any high observation points, but also cluttered with buildings. It's enough clutter that they're not going to be able to draw any long-range observation from anywhere, I don't think. So I think they're going to have to direct fire almost entirely off the TRPs, which may alleviate me from thinking too much about where I put them in the setup phase. Okay, you know, if they can get to this building, they may then have an easier time directing fire deeper into the fort. I will put one of them on the right side of my forces. I still don't want them mixed in with the infantry just because I want to be able to easily distinguish who's my infantry versus, like, who is a unit that I should treat as troops I want to close with and assault the enemy, which I very much do not want my FOs to do. So keeping them in distinct locations from the infantry rather than mixed in is an easy way to keep track of that. Okay, I think there isn't anything else for me to fuss with. I have my tanks placed, I have my infantry placed. I don't have any better bright ideas about where to put my TRPs. I think it's time to give the first turn orders. Okay. Which is going to consist of a movement to contact. For at least the infantry are going to move to contact. The tanks I may want to move a bit more aggressively. Okay. Now then, tanks. Probably give them a fast move. And be pretty aggressive with them. Now, there is some ground here that is impassable to them, so that's worth bearing in mind. Okay, I think it is time to kick this thing off and start getting some turns in. That order is to cover about 200 meters of ground, which Matilda's pretty slow, so that's probably... They won't surpass that on the first turn. Okay. I think the first time in a very long time I've seen the Matilda in action, and the first time I've seen it in action on my side. So I think I encountered one or two, maybe in the France scenarios. Ooh. I knew they were slow, I didn't think they were that slow. Maybe it's the rocky ground or the slope they're driving up. That's the culprit. Yeah. Is the ground... That's maybe something I should have looked at. Is the ground significantly rockier on that side than... Yeah, this ground looks a lot less rocky, actually. Well, maybe that was something I should have paid attention to. You gotta remember the rocky ground tiles in CM1 are much slower for tank movement. It would seem. Okay, but we'll be past the rocky ground in another turn or so. Could do it. Fine. Got a gun there. Got a gun. And we've caught it facing the wrong way. Ah, there's a lot more guns right there. I should fall in some artillery, shouldn't I? That looked... Oh, ouch. Took 3 casualties there. Okay. Ricocheting. That's good. Okay. Some of our tanks are making it past the rocky ground. Okay. Internal flank. armor flaking, so we're not impervious to this fire. I'm gonna get, I think, my mortars. So you're calling it in on a TRP. Okay, that won't even take a minute. Perfect. What about dealing with that gun? So our infantry have already come to a stop, which is entirely sensible of them. Go ahead and get the next turn in. Okay, got away without any serious damage there. I know the Matildas have tough armor, but bad luck happens. Occasionally the enemy manages to hit something important. So, I do not want to take solace in their armor alone. Mortars should start hitting pretty soon. Yep, there we go. First mortar's landing, and the width of the bombardment area is perfect. We got one there, one landing there. That tells me all 4 of these guns are inside the target area. Ooh, those guys are... yeah, like, if... Okay. I probably could have, counted up the sandbag boxes to tell me that attacking from this direction would mean hitting a higher concentration of guns. I think our mortars are dealing with that. Maybe I might as well just start calling our artillery next to the main gate anyway. If we can count on every sandbag box having a gun in it, then that's 3 more guns right there that are well worth targeting with my artillery. Okay. And the infantry... I probably do want them to try to advance. Have you start bringing in a bit of artillery right. Ooh, not sure I'm going to be able to target this in a way that'll get all three of these into the target area. I'll try that target area. It's unfortunate that I can't. Like, I don't actually know how large an area I'm targeting. Like, the only option is in CM1 is go for a point target. Well, go for a point target or go for a wide area, but if you're not... But we're just kind of counting on the basic dispersion of the guns in order to affect a larger area. Right there. Give these tanks a chance to catch up, I think, before ordering. Well, now I should have you push forward, try to overrun. Oh, that's not what I meant to hit. Try to overrun some of these guns, because they are going to pose a threat to my infantry that I have ordered to start advancing. So, why are you... probably reversing... Okay. He's surrendering already, but we still got a machine gun there. I'm gonna have you push forward there. You stay put, all of you stay put. Because, so World War II tanks, they do not have gun stabilization, so moving does mean reducing the effectiveness of their fire. Although the 2-pounder is a light enough gun that we've got to sort of... it does kind of have a kind of gun stabilization. The gun stabilization system is, of course, the human knees, the gunner himself, is the gun... You can watch some Chieftain's Hatch videos on any British tank with a 2-pounder gun, and he'll kind of explain it. But the gun kind of rests on has a bit of a shoulder rest. It's light enough to be manually aimed, so that at least elevation and depression can be manually controlled by the gunner. It's not too much of a load for him. But that also means that the gunner himself can act as a bit of a stabilization system. So the Matilda should not be as inaccurate on the move as some later tanks with heavier guns that really do need an artificial stabilization system in order to keep the gun stable. Okay, I think I don't have any further orders, so on to the next turn. Okay, he has wisely surrendered, so these guys are no longer going to be holding up my infantry advance. It looks like the mortars are being pretty effective here. So my main concern then is that gun. Maybe it isn't anymore. The Italian morale does seem to be pretty weak here. I'll take it. You get no objection from me on the enemy not being willing to fight. My goal is not to kill the enemy, it's to make them stop fighting. And if they are prepared to voluntarily stop fighting, then that is a lot less work for me than me having to physically force them to stop fighting. Okay, yeah. Maybe I could have dropped that barrage a little further forward. Actually, yeah, why did I drop it as far back as I did? But overall, the dispersion on that barrage looks good. Maybe I'll order it to adjust a bit. The dispersion on that barrage doesn't... That's not capturing... It's not hitting all the points I wanted to hit, so I'll have to adjust that. In fact, even this one could benefit from adjusting a little bit further forward. And again, it'll probably take a minute to adjust, and I expect I'm probably less than a minute from overrunning these guns anyway. Yeah, just let the mortars keep firing for one more minute. How are we doing on ammo? We're doing pretty good on ammo. But yeah, let the mortars keep firing for one more minute. And then next turn cancel the barrage. Since by then I expect my tanks to be right up against this wall. You know, ready to overrun the guns. I think the way this is going, probably the order, the division of labor I think that we're going to end up getting is the tanks are going to end up doing all of the shooting and scaring the enemy into putting their hands up, and the infantry will then be receptive to actually taking the surrendering enemy into custody. I think how this is going to end up going. But I think for now it's a work night. I've got the setup, planning setup and the first few turns in, which will do for part 1. So I may just call it here. One more turn. It's easy to just do one more turn forever and ever. But my brain could use a break. So yeah, we'll call that here.